first piece I want to show you is a trial we did in conjunction with the New South Wales Department of Agriculture and Food Science back in 2002. Two containers of two 20-foot reefers, one modified atmosphere and one standard reefer, were shipped from Brisbane to Jebel Ali in the Emirates. The majority of the cargo was broccoli. There were probably about 60 cartons of cauliflower and there's half a dozen cartons of lettuce. In each container there was about 180 microprobes placed throughout the entirety of each container, recording the temperatures during the voyage. And this is just trying to show you, give you a perception of what happens inside a reefer container during the voyage. It's fairly quick, so briefly, the blue is temperature between 0 and plus 0.5 degrees Celsius. The green is plus 0.5 to plus 2. You'll see three blips of orange and red. First is on day 1 during the transport from Gatton to the terminal. I'm not sure what it was now. 13 and 15 was at Singapore when it was discharged from the ship and then reloaded on the second ship. And the last lot at Jebel Ali. Two reefers were 4 to 5 years of age, both set at 0 degrees Celsius supply air, and the modified atmosphere was set at 11% O2 and 10% CO2. And you'll note that throughout the photographs you'll see that the modified atmosphere maintained pretty close to plus 0.5, whereas the standard was plus 2, got up to plus 2, and those two readings are return air, not supply air. You'll see the orangey blips in a minute. Normally the Port of Singapore Authority ensure there's maximum of 60 minutes off power during the transshipment. I might add the broccoli outturned A1 and was sold. The cauliflower outturned OK, but at that time Iran had put a lot of cauliflowers into the market, so they didn't make their money on that. And the lettuce predictably outturned no good. Now I want to talk about what we consider in the shipping industry two of the major issues we have, that is temperature and stowage of containers. Temperatures, as Daniel mentioned earlier, we've done a lot of work at the Freight Council on trials, and I've got a number of graphs showing the good, bad, what have you. The shipper expected us to carry the product at 0 degrees. That was taken out of the box, plus 4 degrees. The important issue on refrigerator containers is that they are designed, built to maintain product temperature, not to bring product temperature down. They will, but over a period of time, in which case there's every possibility the product integrity could be compromised. Some trial shipments done out of the West, all looking fairly good. You'll notice, you notice those blips there. May be a concern. That is actually, in fact, the defrost cycle of the refrigerator containers. It all maintained pretty well close to the temperature requirements. This is the biggest problem the industry has with the citrus industry. As you can see, it started at about 32 degrees and it's taken 3 days to get the product temperature down to the carriage temperature of plus 5 degrees Celsius. purely because it was packed out in the ambient air. And when that 40-foot container was packed, we estimated there's around about 12 cubic metres of ambient air at 32 degrees Celsius when it packed. When you're talking vegetables, particularly where the temperature is more finite, that is an issue. And it's something we can keep pushing people for all the time, and you'll see more of this as we go along. Just threw this one in. It's an air freight issue of the problems you encounter, particularly on the tarmac. That is the most vulnerable time of any produce exports by air. We did some trials in Adelaide at the Adelaide Airport with a foil line AV and a standard AV, and the standard AV got up to 52 degrees Celsius when the day was 37 degrees C. So air freight, you've got to be very careful. This is a shipment of broccoli, which we did. Absolutely perfect. A1 outturn. Threw this one in. This is a container that arrived at the Adelaide terminal. As you can see, the first reading around about 9 degrees. 24 hours later, it's got down to the 1 degree Celsius as required. It's a container of grapes. Thereafter, it's fairly well maintained. Again, packed out in the open air. Prior to loading, these are the questions you really need to ask yourself. Is it the right size container? Right shipping line? Is it a reefer? I've heard of instances where a reefer's been required and a GP's been delivered. First of all, you must check that the container has been through a pre-trip mechanical check. There's a decal on the back of the machinery which will tell you the date it was pre-tripped. Make sure the door seals are correct. Sorry. Are in good condition. It's clean and odourless, and there's no visible damage. If there is visible damage, it needs to be notified to the line concerned immediately. Otherwise, I'll try and hit you for it. Pre-cooling of a container? No. And I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, a shipper rang me and abused me to no end, complaining he had wet cartons at the machinery end. And we went through the whole process with him, because I had been to the packing shed before. And it was clearly established that because it was a hot day, they plugged the reefer container into the power, put it on at +5, and then proceed to load the container. With 2 men inside and a forklift running pallets in, a lot of moisture went to the roof, condensation dripped down onto the wet cartons. Never pre-cool a container, and never run a container whilst you're loading unless you're in a fully enclosed loading dock. That is a fully enclosed loading dock where the ante-room should be at the same temperature as to the product you want to pack and carry. This is the interior of a container. You must make sure that those baffle plates are in place, because that forces the air down onto the floor. A shipping container is a bottom airflow, as distinct from road transport, which is top air. So totally different reverse. And the T-bar fall grills, which allows the air to transit right through the whole container and up through the cargo. That's basically the airflow system. And we'll come to that a little bit more later on in that area there. Just another one of a citrus trial. Again, very clear. It's an industry that causes us heartache galore. But apart from that, it's generally pretty good unit. When you're looking at a market, you must understand what happens at that market once the container arrives. This is in Jakarta. They're going to truck these mandarins in a truck 300 kilometres away with no refrigeration, no ventilation, no nothing. Imagine what the product's going to be like at the other end. Okay, the consigne's taken delivery, but it's your product label that's going to get in the nasty words. This is Singapore wet market, the main market, Pasir Panjang. Okay, nowadays, this was taken a number of years ago, nowadays supermarkets control 60–70% of the market. Those days, the Pasir Panjang market controlled 70%. So you need to understand what's happening with your product once it gets through. Stowage. The perfect pallet. Allows for plenty of ventilation throughout the pallet to ensure the cargo is getting the correct temperature, thus maintaining quality. This pallet's totally unacceptable, and I can't ever see how that one would ever be loaded into a container. I saw that, it wouldn't even touch it. Airflow, as you saw earlier in that photo, airflow is critical to disperse the temperature throughout the container. This container came from New Zealand, en route New Zealand to Brisbane. The ship had alarm bells ringing, and checked it mechanically, because most of the vessels have access to refrigeration systems 24/7, and they couldn't find a problem, so the master demanded the container be offloaded in Brisbane. When we opened the doors under Aquis's supervision, etc., we find all this. That red line's there for a purpose. Cargo should never be loaded above that red line, otherwise it will impede the airflow. There's another classic from Fremantle, and they wondered why the product was pretty ordinary on outturn. And not a good photograph, but that's the product from that container. This is the other end of the extreme of broccoli, which I think is a bit crazy, but that's what he wanted to do. And that's the product on ice just before loading. And I understand from photographs I have seen, the product in the stem end was not much different to that colour now. So it was a perfect shipment. Looking at that photograph, it looks fine in general principle, except there. You can't see anywhere the floor grill. And the floor grill ends at around about, sorry, the old system, 5 inches from the door, specifically for airflow. I found out about this after the event and making inquiries. They had to get a forklift, put a piece of timber on the 2 times to shut the door. That's the outturn of the product, wrinkly and no good. This container was loaded with 2 rows of loose cartons and pallets behind. Did the pallet stay? Perfect. Slightly better photograph, certainly a bit more sunshine, but that's the fruit that was in the pallets. As I said, airflow is critical to disperse the temperature throughout. How in the hell are we supposed to get temperature through that? It's impossible. Sorry about the delay. This is frozen fries going to Singapore. The air is completely shut off, so it will short circuit back at the supply source. Nothing gets through. When shipping, make sure that any packaging, any loose plastic is taken off and removed. This is a container of grapes that was shipped from Melbourne. Again, the ship encountered alarms en route to Adelaide. Was mechanically checked at Adelaide, all A1. Again, the master demanded taken off because of the alarms. And the Reefer technicians, by going through the back machinery casing, found all this plastic that had been sucked off the cartons into the outlet vent, thus short-circuiting the air. This is just something we did for oysters, moving, again, the road transport side of it is the issue here. What we would consider the perfect container, the pallet bins finish right at the T-bar floor grills, thus allowing the air to come through, up, back out the container. How not to package exports. This is frozen ice cream, just like to be distributed within Australia. It was loaded in the container, trucked to the terminal, and this mess was found. Totally inadequate. Nobody has really thought about how to export their product properly. This is a fish import. Again, I stress the point of the floor grill. There's the gap between the floor grill and the door. This is Nile perch. Those 2 rows of cartons to the root or to the red line had all thawed out because the air was able to move up through that gap there to the rest of the cargo, bypassing those 2 rows. Total right off that fish. Just a bit of careful thinking and making sure that that area is left open for the airflow. Palletising, totally unacceptable. It's quite conceivable that could collapse. It's not from Australia, that's from South Africa, that one. Thank you. Any questions? I'll try and confuse you further.
Just a quick question. What do we do about the mandatory inspections at port of arrival or ports in between where there's no actual control over the repacking of containers?
I'm sorry, I'm not quite with you, do you?
For biosecurity inspections?
Before shipment?
Yeah, before, during and at the end of shipment.
Well, before shipment depends on which regulations you're looking at. Are you talking of in-transit sterilisation or the standard aqueous phyto inspections?
Yeah, more the standard phyto inspections.
We don't get involved, but basically the shipper makes the appointment with the DAF now to come and inspect the fruit. They'll do the inspections as per the importing company's regulations on quantities, standards. If approved, they'll then issue the phyto, and it just proceeds with it as a normal shipment thereafter. If it's transshipped at Singapore, as long as the seal is intact, nothing happens, it just proceeds, continues on.
The reason I ask the question is we've got growers that pack their containers in our region. It then gets sent to Brisbane, and then it's inspected by Aquis there, and the growers have no control over how the shipments are repackaged. The
containers are packed out away from Brisbane?
Yes, correct.
Sealed?
Yes, and there has been a couple of cases where they were actually unsealed in Brisbane. That's why I'm asking the question.
I don't understand why, because to me, once you've got the container sealed by Aquis and the seal is notated on the phytosanitary certificate, there should be no reason why it should be done again.
Yeah, and we had the same opinion, but it was repackaged, it passed the inspection. But yeah, those circumstances where there's no control.
I'd challenge, I'd go through to the seniors at the DAF in Brisbane and question why. If you've got the documentary evidence to substantiate the DAF inspection, or was it a DAF trained person? You have a number of people like former growers who are trained by DAF to do the inspections out in the country somewhere. Whether that's part of the problem, I don't know.
Yeah, we're still trying to get to the bottom of that one.
Yeah, I think really you need to go to the DAF in Brisbane failing that DAF Canberra, because I mean I just can't see if DAF at the packing point has passed and issued the phyto, notated the container and seal number. Yeah, technically in Brisbane they've broken that phyto. That phyto is useless because the seal number's got to change. You won't get that same seal number again, ever. So to me, you've got to go to DAF in Brisbane, phoning up Canberra, because basically you're incurring 2 lots of charges. Well, I can't see why. I've not heard of that anywhere else in Australia. Every other place it's just the initial DAF inspection, phyto, away it proceeds.
But aside from that fact, just taking that a bit further, what about sending, when you mentioned the protecting the brands, it's your brand that's going to get the bad name.
Yep.
There's a lot of product put off the wholesale floor and shipped off for export.
I know,
and the
particularly in
growers have no
Sydney.
control over that.
It's a big worry. It happens more so into the islands, Pacific Islands. It's rampant. It's up to DAF, maybe HAL as well. I don't know whether there's export licence required for the Pacific Islands. I think there is. So these people, I mean, it's an issue, I can assure you, because not only do I say fruit off the wholesale market, they buy veggies as well and mix the whole lot together in one container. It's a nightmare. To the extent now we are reluctant to carry the fruit, the products, the mixed veggies to the islands, because it's a big issue. But yeah, I mean, most of the fruit on the markets is second quality, third grade. So again, that label, whomever packer is, has now got, or could get, a bad reputation, let's say Fiji for argument's sake, whereas through no fault of his own, some smart trader in Sydney's bought it off the market and flogged it over there. What can you do about it? I'm not sure. Probably nothing. It's commerce, isn't it?
Just send more volume so it's all your product in one container.
That's right. You can get out there and do your own market. Okay.